My name is Jen Brady, and I'm an author. I have in the past published several books that are more middle grade in nature, and a couple of years ago, I decided to branch out into young adult sweet romance. And the first project I took on under this new genre to me was a retelling of Little Women. So I have 4 books, and there's one for each of the sisters. You can read them independently. You don't have to read one before the other, but if you read them in order, there are threads that kind of weave along the whole series. So it's best to read them in order, but you don't have to. And I just had a lot of fun adapting Little Women for 2021.
One of my friends on Instagram, she had read some of your books, and I told you that you are coming back, and then she sent a question.
Oh.
Yeah, she's asking, what did you especially focus on when writing the Meg and John relationship in this century?
Well, I guess it was the social aspect, because so much was made of the wealth versus the poor in making the matches in the original, and how so many women were wanting to or having to marry for money, and how Meg kind of chose not to. She married for love, and in this day and age, yeah, that still can be something that happens, but women have a lot more opportunities now. They don't have to be told that they need to consider that kind of thing. So, well, the money issue was kind of in the book. It was more the social aspect of the popularity and can this person get you where you want to be in life, and that kind of thing, rather than the money. So I guess I focused mainly on the social aspect and what the friends think, and what your social circles are going to say if you date someone who is maybe out of your social circle, that kind of thing, because I see that a lot in teenagers and social media and high school life, and I think that is kind of a tough issue, maybe more so than some of the things that were involved in the original book.
I think the social aspect was also important in the 19th century, but they definitely put way more weight on how wealthy the person was.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, there wasn't that many opportunities for women to have a job at all. So it's kind of makes sense that you had to marry someone who could provide to you and your family.
Yeah, definitely.
When I was reading your book, I did feel that it translated very well to this century, because you brought the story to high school world, where reputation is very important, and there are all these different social classes in high school in the same way that there is in Little Women. I thought it translated very well to this particular story.
Well, thanks. I kind of thought that it was the easiest one to adapt. Some of the other ones, I kind of really had to think hard about, what would that look like in our time. That one, it pretty much kind of fell into place. There were a lot of really easy parallels.
Yeah, like Meg going to Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy to put into the context of trying to be popular in high school. I would like to ask you, when did you begin writing?
I have old notebooks that you can barely read because my printing is so bad, because I'm in like 2nd grade, that are basically fan fictions of various Saturday morning cartoons that my friends and I used to like to watch. So,
I love that.
Yeah, I've been interested in writing and creating stories, and even what I did here, adapting or kind of expanding the world of characters and stories that I already enjoyed. So I liked doing the fan fiction when I was younger, and as I got older, I started creating my own stories, and I just kind of never stopped writing.
What other fandoms you like beside Little Woman?
Big one for me growing up was Star Trek. My mom loved Star Trek, the original series. So when I was old enough, I never really got into that one, but I loved The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And I still, every now and then, I'll go back and be like, okay, I'm going to watch a season of Star Trek. So I was real big into science fiction and fantasy. Star Wars is another one. I don't know why people think you have to have a favorite or choose between them because they're both awesome. My husband and I have just been recently into The Mandalorian and the Boba Fett, and now we're waiting for our son to have some time so that we could all watch the new Obi-Wan Kenobi one. So I was into a lot of science fiction and fantasy fandoms.
My sister's a massive Star Trek fan.
Well, there's so much Star Trek.
Yeah.
So you can go down that rabbit hole for days.
She only agreed to watch the 1978 Little Woman because it had William Shatner.
Oh, that's funny.
But she did like it.
Oh, I thought of one other fandom that I was huge into. I still like, but as a teenager, oh my gosh, North and South, the miniseries.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of watched that for the same reason as your sister, because Jonathan Frakes, who was on The Next Generation, he was one of my favorite actors on that. He was in North and South. And so I started watching North and South. And then I think it was like 30 minutes into it, I was in love with that fandom. And my friends and I also wrote fan fiction about North and South. So.
I think we talked about this a little bit the last time, that perhaps John is not that popular as Laurie and Frederick because he's more introverted than he's extroverted.
Yeah, I would agree. He's not one that really stands out on your first read or your first viewing of the movie as much as maybe the other men. But I've always really liked John. He just kind of seems like a strong, maybe that strong and silent kind of type. Yeah, he's not as much focused on in things either. Well, he really wasn't as, well, that's not true. I was going to say he wasn't in Little Women, the original book, as much, but when you read the second half, The Good Wives, there is quite a bit of John, and then he's in some of the sequels too, so he's there. He just, yeah, he isn't as, I guess, exciting, but I don't know, I thought he had some really good qualities too, so I've always kind of been a fan of him.
When I read Little Woman as a child, I didn't really pay that much attention to him, but then when I read Little Woman more as a mature person, in Camp Lawrence chapter, there's this moment where he tells this story, or they are like telling the story together. You know that play where you make up something, and the other continues. Yeah,
and they each told their own little paragraph, and
it's a story about a knife that goes to save a princess, and John's princess is Meg March.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
And I thought, when I read it for the first time, when I realized what I was reading as a teen, I was like, that's kind of racy.
Yeah, from back then it kind of probably was.
Because Meg was 17 and he was maybe 27, 28. There was some kind of an age gap there as well.
Yeah.
It was pretty normal back then, so I don't think it's appropriate for the time period.
Yeah.
Hello friends, it is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
And they didn't even bat an eye at it, it didn't seem, because they would talk about Joe and Frederick having a big age gap, but no one ever said anything about Meg and John, even though, you know, they had 10 years or 8 years or whatever. But yeah, that was pretty common.
Louisa May Alcott, she had a thing for older guys.
Older guys, yeah. And I think as a kid, when I was reading Little Women, and maybe this is where he kind of gets lost in the shuffle, you're more focused on the kid characters, the teenage characters, and he's always an adult, so maybe that's why he doesn't make as much of an impression, especially on our first read throughs, because a lot of times we're kids or teenagers when we first first read the story.
I think in the chapter Camp Lawrence, there's also the moment when he is rowing the boat with Meg, and then Laurie is his cousins, the rich cousins.
Mm-hmm.
No, not cousins, friends.
Friends, yeah.
From England. The girl is like, what are you doing for a living? And Meg is like, I am a governess. And then she's like,
oh, you have to work.
Yeah. Why do you have to work? And
right.
Then John is like, I think being a governess is a really cool thing. And I just later on realized that, well, they're both teachers.
Yeah, they are. I liked how he kind of swoops in and tells, is it Kate? I think her name is Kate. The
Kate
snobby sister. Yeah, the
Kate
snobby sister
yeah.
of Fred. You know, maybe it's different in England, but here it's looked up to if you can go support yourself, and working isn't a bad thing. He really valued that Meg was helping her family and a hard worker, and kind of went in and was talking about that to get Kate off her back almost.
That was one of those moments that really made me fall in love with John's character later on. But yeah, I think he's more of an introvert, and with Beth maybe, and then the others to be more extroverted.
Yeah, I think so. And that's probably why he isn't as focused on, but he's still a great character.
Did you use your own high school, college memories when writing this book?
Maybe a little, but I was not like Meg at all. I was more of a shy Beth. I was never in with the in crowd or doing things like going to prom. And I guess I was more like the John character, not really feeling like I fit in high school. And I was quiet and liked to read. And so maybe you're right. And I did draw on my high school experiences. I'm just now realizing, but it wasn't for Meg. It was for the John character.
You know the movie Mean Girls?
Yes.
When they go through all the cliques in the high school scenario, and then they go to the art students. That's where I was.
Okay. It's a good place to be too.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like school that much. But when I went to art school, there was no cliques because we all came from that.
All art students. Yeah. Yeah, high school wasn't my favorite time at all. It wasn't like a horrid experience or anything. I wasn't like horribly bullied or anything like that, but I just didn't really feel like I fit in there. I found my friends, my true friends in college and also at summer camp. I was real big into summer camp, and that's actually what I wrote about for my first series for 10, 15 years. That's kind of what I worked on, books about summer camp, because that was more my things that had made an impression on me and the place where I'd had really good times.
I never went to summer camp.
Oh, you should have. It was so fun.
Well, I had fun time in art school. That's okay.
Yeah. I bet it's probably very similar in the whole finding people that you have things in common with. Like you said, there aren't cliques anymore because everybody loves art and has the same kind of viewpoint. That's kind of what camp was.
That's true. I was thinking, what does Little Woman, the original novel, tells about John's background? Because I don't think it tells that much.
All I remember is he took care of his mom or something. It kind of alluded that she might have been elderly and ill or something. I kind of went with the having to take care of the mom, but in a different way with addiction and stuff like that, rather than, because they really don't say much. You don't know. It's kind of a mystery, but that's basically what they say. And that he might have had a brother maybe in the original.
I've written to my notes he had ill mother who he sent money to, and maybe a brother.
Yeah, I don't think they really got into the backstory very much.
It's the same with Fredrik's character, only that he had a sister who sadly died, and two nephews.
And the nephews. And
John went to war, and in your version, he's planning to go to the Marines. Was that right?
National Guard.
National Guard.
Which is because I wanted him to be able to be accessible for other books. If I would have sent him off to the Marines or the Army or something, he'd be gone. So I did National Guard because they have their regular boot camp and stuff, but then they live basically civilian lives, but they have training I think it's once a month they'll have a training. And
Okay.
but
So in your version, John's mom had addiction with alcohol. He came from a very poor background, and he tried to fake to his friends and everyone else that he came from a normal home. And then we have Meg also trying to fake to her friends that she enjoys being the popular it girl.
yeah, because in the Meg Goes to Vanity Fair, a lot of times what they focus on is, oh, Meg dresses up, and Meg, they almost make it out that, oh, she's having fun and this is great and this is what she really wants. And she did want to, run with that crowd, but she also realized things she didn't like about it when she's being talked about. And when she's just realizing, I thought I wanted to run with this crowd, but maybe there's some negatives too. So I tried to kind of focus on that in my book, the discovering who you are, and maybe that's not what you thought you wanted in life when you mature and grow up a little bit.
I think that's a huge theme in Little Woman in the original book as well, that the things that you want as a teenager are not necessarily those things that you want as an adult.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that in a few of the different storylines.
Yeah.
In Louisa May Alcott's.
Jo says that her castle in the air is to write books and own horses and be filthy rich. But then in the second book, there's the chapter All Alone.
She realizes she wants companionship and
she wants
someone to have a life with.
Exactly.
She still does want to be a writer, and she does write, but I think she's happier with the life that she ends up making for herself than the life that she maybe imagined as a 15-year-old.
And I think what Meg wanted, she wanted to be popular and have nice things.
And rich, and she wanted to be like her friends and throwing the balls and buying the expensive fabric and keeping it, and the pretty dresses and the servants and all that.
And then in the second part, she no longer wants those things.
No, she just wants to be wife and mom and her own little family, and it seems like she's pretty happy doing that.